Welcome back to the Sports Rock Show. Now we're going to discuss the coaching carousel that has been playing out in the NFL. Well, I don't know about you, but it seems like there were more coaches fired this year than any year in recent past.
I think there's been, the last 2 or 3 years, there's been 15 new coaches or whatever, something like that.
There were, 7 openings this year?
I mean, Malarkey was fired at Jacksonville. He was only there one season.
Eight openings, actually. Potentially a ninth. There's still rumblings that Dallas may get rid of Garrett and bring in Mike Holmgren.
I can't see that happening. I mean, I just would have, if they were going to make that move, I thought they would have made it now. They would have made it by now.
Well, I mean, there's really no reason for them to.
Well, you want to get...
Well, you want to get your coaching staff in place.
Yeah, I mean,
well, they did. They brought in Monty Kiffin.
That's a mistake.
72 years old.
That's a mistake.
Well, that tells me right there that they're not bringing in Holmgren.
Well, actually, that kind of tells me that maybe they are bringing in Holmgren, because why would Jason Garrett bring in Monty Kiffin?
Jason Garrett doesn't have any say-so.
He has none whatsoever.
He doesn't.
None whatsoever.
The only ass he wipes isn't even his own. He wipes.
Jerry would have to okay everything as far as he loves Garrett. He just loves him.
He does. So moving on, right now the very first coaching hire was done by Kansas City in bringing in Andy Reid. Good choice for them?
I'm not an Andy Reid fan. I thought he misused LaShawn McCoy last year for sure.
Same situation with Jamal Charles in Kansas City potentially.
Possibly. His quarterback situation is really up in the air. They're probably going to be looking for a quarterback. They're going to have to. Their best receiver is going to be a free agent. He probably ain't coming back in Wayne Bowe. Believe it or not, as bad as Kansas City is, and they're having the number 1 pick in the draft, they had 5 or 6 guys on the Pro Bowl team. Take it for what it's worth.
They've got some
talent. There's not a lack of talent in Kansas City. I'm not a fan of Andy Reid, so they seem to like him. They think he can do it. My opinion with Andy Reid probably should have taken a year off, and I mean, he's had a lot of things happen personally and professionally in the last year or so. So my guess would have been he'd take a year off, but he's a football coach, and that's what he wants to do. So God bless him, and we'll see what he does.
I personally think Kansas City would have been better off going for a younger coach, and because I agree, they got some talent there. Never was a big fan of Andy Reid. And quite honestly, when he had good people with him, unfortunately, I think his defensive coordinator, a few years ago, passed away.
Yeah.
And after that, I think that really put him in turmoil.
Well,
then of course, he had
his offensive line coach, the defensive coordinator, and that blew up.
And then he had, and once again, like you said, he had some really, really rough personal times, which I don't care. Anyone that goes through what he went through there is rough. It's got to be rough. It can't be easy. But I don't think that was a good fit for Kansas City. I really don't.
All right, moving on. Mark Trustman's being inked to a deal with the Chicago Bears. Anything to say about the CFL coach coming in?
Worse hire than Andy Reid at Kansas City.
Aren't you glad Cleveland didn't get him?
Yes. Yeah.
His longest tenure was with the Alouettes, 4 years. Been coaching for 30 years. The longest time he's been in one place is 4.
Yeah, I think the Bears. I think that moves. I could be wrong, but I'll say this: the Bears that choice will blow up in their face.
Doug Marrone.
Wait a minute, I got a comment on the Bears situation. I think the worst thing the Bears could ever done was fire Lovie Smith. I personally think that's the worst.
I think they downgraded, quite frankly. If you're going to fire your coach, at least upgrade.
I think they made a mistake by firing Lovie Smith.
Well, I think Chicago looked at it, and you can look at it from the perspective of Chicago. Is they fired Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith hasn't been hired by anybody.
Right.
That the NFL, he's a defensive-minded coach. Now, he is the head coach. It doesn't mean he runs the offense and the defense and the special teams. He's the head coach. So I can't blame everything that happens to them offensively on Lovie Smith. They have an offensive coordinator. They have players that play the game. So he gets a bad rap on it. They were 7-1 and they didn't make the playoffs. That's a big ouch for Lovie Smith. But Lovie Smith is not. I don't think his phone's ringing off the hook for somebody to come in and pick him up as a coach. Now, Arizona is the last team that doesn't have a coach. But you're seeing every team. I think I could be wrong. Every team that has hired a coach has been an offensive-minded coach. That's the way the NFL's headed.
Yep. Another interesting thing about Lovey is I haven't even really heard about him being interviewed for defensive coordinator.
Lovie Smith said he will sit. He's under contract. He's got a year left on his contract, so he's going to get paid what he does anyway. He will sit and wait for a head coaching job next year before he takes a defensive coordinator job.
Okay. Moving on, you've got Doug Marrone to the Bills. Marrone out of Syracuse, 25 and 25 in 2 seasons. Was in New Orleans when that high-powered offense was there. Comes highly touted by, what, you said Bill Parcells? And
Yeah, he does. He was... Now, he didn't call the plays in New Orleans. That was Sean Payton. But he was the offensive coordinator, I believe, for 2 or 3 years. And their offense was #1, I think, for 2 or 3 years. He was there.
He won 2 bowl games in Syracuse. That's a big deal.
And somebody that went to Syracuse in 4 years went 25 and 25 with that football program that I think had won probably 5 games in the previous 4 years or 3 years, whatever it was. He's very well thought of. I don't know much about him. But I think the Browns had a lot of interest in him. And Buffalo jumped on him. So.
Yep.
I think that one thing we got to keep in mind, everyone has to start somewhere. And this young man right here may be one of those people that make a big splash.
Sure.
May not be his initial year, but he
does have some NFL experience.
Splash.
He's not jumping right from college to the NFL. He does have, those 3 years.
Moving on, Gus Bradley to Jacksonville. Was he what? San Francisco's?
He was Seattle's defensive coordinator.
Seattle's defensive coordinator.
And he parlayed that into a job. He's the hot flavor of the month. Seattle's defense was excellent, no question about it. Not good enough to seal the deal against Atlanta, but he's riding the fast track of a hot defense, and he was the coordinator, and he gets a job. Now, how Gus Bradley does as a head coach, time will tell.
Are you a little surprised that they fired Malarkey after 1 year?
No.
I don't think they should have hired him in the first place, to be honest.
Michael Malarkey should be a head coach.
Well, and here we go. You guys mentioned Lovie Smith. No one's beating his door down. I don't see anybody beating Mike Malarkey's door down either.
No. I mean, you get Lovie Smith is not a reach. Mike Malarkey's a retread. Lovie Smith is not.
I will say though, I think. Speaking of Lovie Smith, Jacksonville might have been a pretty good fit for him.
It could have been.
So why they go the Gus Bradley route, I'm not quite sure, but
Younger upstart. And
Yeah.
You have to understand that a lot of teams right now are looking to get. They want lightning in a bottle per se. That's a phrase, but they want somebody to come in that's going to be different, fresh, young.
you're right about that.
Look at pretty much everybody on this list except for Reed are young guys.
Moving on, the San Diego Chargers have hired Denver offensive coordinator Mike McCoy as their head coach, and former Cardinals head coach Ken Wisenhunt as offensive coordinator. Thoughts on those hires?
Well, Mike McCoy, he's only 40 years old. He gets a lot of good publicity as a guy that coached Tim Tebow the year before, changed the offense around so it would benefit Tim Tebow, got him to the playoffs, won a playoff game, beat the Steelers. This year, the whole new offense is invoked under Peyton Manning. So he's got that on his resume, and he's taken 2 teams as an offensive coordinator to the playoffs under 2 completely different offensive philosophies. So I give him his props for that. Ken Wisenhunt is an offensive coordinator. There's a guy that was a head coach that apparently wasn't too hard to swallow his pride to become an OC. Unlike Lovey, that said he won't be a defensive coordinator, he wants to be a head coach again. Wisenhunt's back in the league, thinking that hey, if I can take over an offensive coordinator job and do a good job, I'll get my. Who's going to get fired next year? Who the hell knows?
Right.
But Wisenhunt's still in the game. He's a coordinator. If the Chargers have a good season, and he's got a quarter, the Chargers have some talent. If he can get San Diego back on track to where they're winning some games, he'll be next year when 2 or 3 openings or 4, whatever how many openings, Wisenhunt will probably try to bounce that into a head coaching job.
Right. I think once again I go back to this. It's like we've seen a lot of young guys, but there's only one on this list that has no previous NFL experience. But these other guys have NFL experience, albeit coordinating experience.
Yes.
You got to start somewhere. And I think McCoy was one of these guys. I don't think the Chargers weren't the only ones interested in him. Believe me.
No, they weren't.
He was a hot commodity also.
Yep.
As far as what he can do. And like Doug said, he's willing to adapt. And that's the key thing in the NFL, adapting. Because this year's offense may be obsolete next year. Hell, this year's offense may be obsolete halfway through the season. So you got to be able to adapt with the talent you have. And I think that was a good call for them there. And actually, I wouldn't have had a problem had he been a Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how he'll do. I do think you have to be careful when you're picking a head coach. You have to be careful of picking the flavor of the month.
Right.
The guy with the hot defense, the guy with the hot offense.
I understand that.
You have to.
I understand that.
Well, that's
but with him though, that's where I think he would have played in better with other teams. Like what they're doing here is like he adapted. He isn't just I'm headstrong. I'm going to do this, like you said. Hell, he ran an offense with Tim Tebow, then he comes right around and he has Peyton Manning. It's like he can adapt and do with what his talent.
No, he's got some talent in San Diego.
Well, with what his talent gives him, he's willing to make it win. And that's what I look at as a coach. It's like, take what you got and make it win.
But he did that. He did that as an offensive coordinator. Now he's a head coach.
I understand that.
But
There's a lot more pressure involved. I understand that.
He's got Wisenhunt there to help him through that too, though.
That's true.
Which could be a very big help, not only in the fact that Wisenhunt's going to be a very good coordinator.
Well, we're going to.
That's a good.
Good call.
That's a good call.
Very good call.
That's a good call. But I mean, Wisenhunt is going to be a good somebody
buffer
for him to turn to.
It'd be a great buffer for him.
Yep. Speaking of flavor of the month, how about Chip Flip Flop Kelly?
What a weasel.
The Eagles. Talk about flavor of the month.
You said flip flop? I hope the last is what comes in big time.
Wow.
I hope Flop comes in huge because he's in a city right there where if he don't make it happen, he's really going to be run out of town.
I want to ask you this
I hope
really quick. First of all, my opinion, I believe Chip Kelly was afraid to go to the NFL because he met for a long time with the Browns. Rumor has it they were close to a deal. Then he met for a long time with the Eagles. Rumor has it close to a deal. I think that he was afraid to commit to the NFL because I think he's afraid of being a flop.
Yes.
He went back to Oregon, caught wind that they're going to get hammered on sanctions, cut bait and run, called up Philly because the Browns had already hired somebody and said, hey, will you take me back? They said, yes, come on in. Bam, done deal.
I got a good call on this one, too. The sanction part he knew before he even went out.
But I don't think he knew it was as bad, though, is my thing.
My opinion on this is this. I think Oregon got to the point where it was this. Last year, he tinkered with the idea that he was leaving to go to the NFL.
It could be.
This year, he interviewed with 3 different teams, and I think Oregon just sat back there and said, you know what? We really don't give a shit what you've done for us here now. You're not a loyal person to this program. You're somebody that can't make up your mind whether you want to be an Oregon Duck or you want to be in the NFL. So you know what? And they already had, if I'm not mistaken, what I've seen on ESPN and that, they already decided they were elevating a coach to be the head coach.
Yeah, well, then, now that before the bowl game.
And I think, quite honestly, that played into this whole big time. And I think that's why Chip Kelly went back to interview with the Philadelphia Eagles, because I think he went back as like, there wasn't lovey-dovey with him coming back anymore. It's like, you know what, dude? We're tired of your bullshit. We're tired of this yo-yo effect. You're going to be here 1 year. You're not going to be here next year. Screw this. We want to move on, and we want to move on with a guy that wants to be here for a while. Granted, I think that, to me, I think that was what this whole incident was all about.
I think that it's entirely... you may have a point because Oregon's got to keep thinking, well, next year we're going to go through the same song and dance.
Yep.
And by then, who knows, that offensive coordinator that they're going to promote may take a job somewhere else.
Well,
I mean, I think you're right. I think Oregon sat back and thought if he doesn't bolt this year, he may next year, or he may the year after that. He's not staying for 5 to 10 more years. So let's cut ties and run and let him go.
And the recruits that they recruited to bring in next year, this offensive coordinator, I'm sure he's talked to these kids. He's been around these kids, and it's like they're like, okay, I know at least if I come, he's going to be there, I'm sure, for at least a couple of years. Who knows what will happen with him? It's hard to say.
Well,
But
yeah.
I think a lot of it had to do with Oregon itself, not Chip Kelly. I think Chip Kelly basically was forced out the door at Oregon. I really do.
Maybe.
I think they said, hey, here's the fucking boot, dude. You want the NFL? Fucking go get it. See how you do in it.
What do you think, Mr. Doug?
Well, I think Chip Kelly. I think the Browns were hot for him.
Yeah.
Sure.
When they met for 7 or 8 hours with him. Then he met with Buffalo, I think, for 45 minutes. And I think Buffalo must have got the vibe that, this isn't the guy we want, whatever. But he interviewed with Philadelphia for a long time, 7 or 8 hours with them as well. And he's an East Coast guy. And I think he wants to coach in the NFL. But I do think, is what he said in the beginning, was it was a fact-finding mission of, do I fit with an NFL team? I don't think after meeting with the Browns that was his. He didn't feel good about the Browns. And the Browns didn't feel good about him. That he wasn't all in.
Yeah,
we want somebody that wants to coach the Browns.
Yes.
If you don't want to do it, you got to think about it or worry about it. Then you're not our guy. It's okay. You're not our guy.
I respect that, though, too.
He likes
On both
Philadelphia.
sides.
Philadelphia, quite frankly, has more talent offensive than Cleveland does. They've got McCoy. They've got Vic, who probably can run his offense.
Mm-hmm.
They've got Macklin. They've got Jackson, small receivers he likes that are fast. Probably a better fit for him.
Bad offensive line, though.
But Cleveland fans that were like, "Oh shit, we couldn't get Kelly or whatever," wonder how he. Now you're going to find out how Chip Kelly can coach in the NFL because now he's in the NFL.
And not only is he in the NFL, he's in the city of brotherly love, which, quite honestly, that's a freaking paradox.
Real
because
quick.
it's a city of brotherly hate for the most part. But hey,
Real quick, okay, because we don't have a lot of time.
all right.
First of all, do you believe that him saying he's going back to Oregon and then coming back and signing with the Eagles, do you think that makes the Browns look bad?
No.
And how long do you think Philadelphia fans give him to succeed?
Well, I don't think I know a lot of people think that he played Cleveland, and in a way, maybe he did.
It wasn't a good
But
fit, like you said.
I like the way that Cleveland said, "Hey, if you're not all in, then we don't want you. We
Right.
want a coach that's all in."
Absolutely.
I do think they were hot for him. But after meeting with him for 7 or 8 hours, and they get the vibe that, this guy might want to coach in college, or, afterwards I'm going to go meet with Buffalo, and then I'm going to go talk to Philadelphia. I think they wanted to go after those 8 hours. They wanted Chip Kelly to say, "I'm all in,"
Right.
and he didn't do it.
I agree.
So they walked away. I don't think that shows bad on Cleveland. I think in the end, and we'll find out, because now that Chip Kelly's in the NFL, we're going to find out whether we should have pushed harder, or hindsight being 2020, we're going to be thankful we never got him.
Right.
I couldn't.
And how he does in Philadelphia, I don't know. I mean, you can look at the history of coaches. History would say no, he won't do that good, but recent history hasn't been too bad. Guys like Harbaugh and stuff have come in and done a pretty good job. So,
But those guys have not had.
but he's not going to run this read option shit that he runs.
No.
He's smart. He'll adapt.
He
to
will
what he's
adapt
got.
it,
I'm not
right.
worried. I wouldn't worry about that
Right.
as a fan.
But, I mean, Harbaugh at least played at the NFL. Chip Kelly
Yeah, he
has
had no NFL
connections
experience.
to the
And-
NFL
and-
whatsoever, which
and
could help him or could
There
hurt him.
are people that would compare him, fairly or unfairly, to Bobby Petrino, who was hired out of college with the Falcons, and by halfway through the season,
He
couldn't take
bolted.
no more.
He bolted. He
couldn't take
left.
anymore. And
He
left.
bolted.
I don't know if Chip Kelly will do that, but would it surprise me? No.
He's definitely flaky, I believe, honestly. He's very flaky, so. All right, that'll do it for the Coaches Carousel section of Sports Rock.
Sprock
We'll see you for the next segment.
on the flip side.